What's up, gays? I am back once again to discuss things I've seen on the internet. Now, I'm a little late to the party on this one, but the New Yorker, the magazine The New Yorker, a couple of weeks ago, they put out an article about comedian Hasan Minhaj, specifically about his latest stand-up special and the lies that are contained within it. I somehow managed to sit through the entire special, which was not easy, I might add, so I figured, hey, why don't I give a little more context to the bits? But first, who is Hasan Minhaj? Hasan Minhaj, just as annoying but no relation to Nicki, is a comedian and a political commentator slash host of the Patriot Act, a Netflix show modeled after The Daily Show, which is actually rumored to be replacing its current host Trevor Noah with Hasan Minhaj in the near future. You could also say he's an activist or an advocate for, well, whatever left-wing talking point is popular at the moment. If you're like me and never heard of Hasan Minhaj before and are unfamiliar with his comedy stylings, then based off the fact that he is not white and works for Netflix, you can pretty much guess what you're gonna get when you listen to him. He's safe, left-wing, never really takes any chances, generally very predictable and positive. You could say he's never really taken a shot at anyone's race or religion or any kind of taboo subject. Unless, of course, if they're a white male who have conservative views, then, I mean, that's obviously acceptable. Granted, I am basing this off just the one comedy special that I've seen by him, so take this with a grain of salt. Because of his partnership with Netflix through his show The Patriot Act, he's also done two specials with them. One in 2017 called Homecoming, and the other in 2022 called The King's Jester. Ew, The King's Jester. They say don't judge a book by its cover, but come on, that name sucks a lot. The name is derived from the overarching theme of the special, which is gay, especially when you figure out what that theme is, but we're jumping ahead of ourselves. Journalist Claire Malone wrote an article for The New Yorker on September 15th, 2023 called Emotional Truths, where Claire took Hasan's fantastical sounding stories he was telling on stage and decided to do a little deep dive, do a little investigation, only to find out that none of them were true. But you might be saying to yourself, but who cares? They're only jokes. Why does it matter if one is true or not? Which is fair. I mean, I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with lying in a joke. That's fine. But I think what myself and most people's issue is his lies were never in service of the joke or the punchline itself. It was always in service of some political or cultural statement that he was trying to make. They were exclusively used to make him look like he was a good person or had a tough life. In the article, she does manage to interview Hasan, who responded by saying, though his stories weren't factually true, they were, quote, emotional truth, which is made up and meaningless. Actually, no. What he means is he wants them to be true, therefore they are true, disregarding any facts that prove the exact opposite. Now, initially, I wasn't expecting to review this special as a whole, but I couldn't find any clips on YouTube from the special about the bits that were specifically being discussed, and there was just so many lies in this special that you couldn't really skip around the timeline to just get to the meaty parts. So I painstakingly did watch the whole thing, so here are my brief overview. The intro is artsy and cringe. Camera angles and lighting and sound effects make you feel like you're not watching a stand-up special, like it's something else completely. It's too self-centered and not self-deprecating enough. Set design and outfit are wild. It's too distracting. It looks like a Bollywood version of a Kanye concert. He shows a lot of pictures and videos. Just tell your dumb jokes. We don't need visual aids. It's a cheap trick that never enhances the joke. He does this thing where he does a sharp transition from being jokey into being very serious, which is gay.
Now, as the years go on, I come to find out my hunch was correct. Through the Patriot Act, the feds were watching us. And they were getting kids to give false confessions. In Dearborn, Michigan. In Chicago.
He tries to be Dave Chappelle, which he isn't. And you could have serious moments in a stand-up special, but they need to be undercut with jokes where he kind of just plays them for sympathy. And lastly, I'm pretty sure he's a closeted gay man. Here's a compilation of some moments for proof.
And I swallow that shit like a real one. Yo, Will Morosky is built like a Greek god. Dude, this is crazy. And she's like, Hasan, hey. And I'm like, hey. Pecs, bulge. I cannot stop thinking about Will Murawski. Crown Prince in New York. Your boy in New York. Let me shoot my shot. Let me slide in the DM. Photo of Kumail Nanjiani. Don't clap. Don't you dare clap at this photo. If I only got 86 likes on a photo, I would kill myself.
So in the special, there's 3 kind of larger storytelling style bits that he tells that have a lot of lies in them, or at least like very specific ones. So I'm gonna like just basically go through each one as they appear in the special in chronological order. He tells a story of a 2002 post 9/11 brown-skinned teenage Hasan who is Muslim, and there's this guy, Brother Eric, who joins his mosque. Brother Eric is a white guy who obviously just recently converted to Muslimism, whatever it's called. And Hasan is the only one that's like suspicious of him. No, everyone else is just kind of taking him at face value. He trolls Brother Eric by telling him that he's been thinking about getting his pilot's license, which moments later, essentially, the police show up and slam Hasan's face on top of a police car and then interrogate him for terrorism, I suppose. Years later, Hasan is watching TV with his papa. There was an Al Jazeera expose on Craig Montiel, an FBI informant who'd infiltrate Muslim communities and allegedly coerce some innocent kids into committing crimes and got them locked up for a lot of time. Now, I'm not super familiar with the actual case itself, but I am gonna take this report at face value. I mean, it is the FBI. They have done things like this in the past, but none of that really matters. What does matter is in this bit, Hasan just straight out says that Brother Eric was Craig Montiel, which is not true. Well, according to, what was her name again? Claire Malone, who spoke to Craig, he was in prison in 2002 and wouldn't start working with the FBI till 2006. He also worked out of Southern California and not Sacramento, where Hasan lived at the time. So essentially, this story was used as a framing device for feel bad for me because I'm Muslim. He tries way too hard to be like this voice of the voiceless type figure. His comedy is essentially for LA influencers with like a vocal fry. It's really hard to take him seriously because whenever he flips the switch into serious mode, his acting is like college theater level. And there's no real punchline at the end of this bit. It's just feel bad for me and then clapter, no laughter, 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 clapter. He jumps into the next bit, which is about him beefing with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. He was allegedly going to interview the Prince of Saudi Arabia. I don't know if that's true or not. There's quite a few lies, so he might have been lying about that too. But anyways, he was allegedly going to interview this guy and go to the embassy, the Saudi Arabian embassy in New York. And as he was riding back home from the embassy on the subway, this is when the news broke about Saudi Arabia assassinating journalist Jamal Khashoggi. Now, Claire did interview one of the producers on Hasan's show, and she did manage to confirm that Hasan did meet with the embassy, but it was like a month before, at least a month before the Jamal Khashoggi incident, if not more. Damn, Hasan basically stolen valor to dead journalists. That is wild. In retaliation for Jamal, Hasan decided to make an episode about it for his TV show, which ended up going viral. Allegedly, I literally didn't know his show existed till I started researching him. That episode of the show ended up going viral.
Allegedly.
And Time magazine invited him to this gala for 100 interesting people. One of the 100 seats was designated for some lady who got locked up by Saudi Arabia for like driving while being a woman or something like that. It doesn't really matter. The lady gets locked up, who he admits like earlier on in this bit that he didn't know who she was at all. Hasan is asked to give a speech, and in the middle of his speech, Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner ended up showing up late and unknowingly sat in the chair designated for the driving Saudi Arabian girl. He then proceeds to show a clip of his speech where he's roasting Jared Kushner, while also glazing over the fact that he also didn't know who that woman was.
Do you know how many likes Daddy got on his Kushner dunk?
Humiliation. Frag.
You ever been like halfway through a story and you're like, damn, this kind of feels more like a you had to have been there type of story, so you pull the chute early and you just kind of like finish the story without really giving an ending? Imagine you did that, but instead of just gracefully bowing out when you realize you've gone too far, you then pull out your phone and show a video of the sick burn you made against some guy. He's literally mouthing the joke while the video is playing.
People here, and it'd be crazy if, I don't know, if there was just like a high-ranking official in the White House.
This is so vain. His lack of self-awareness is honestly like it's astonishing. Anyways, even though his sick burn that made him look strong and tough and cool did happen, the part about that chair being designated to that arrested girl wasn't true. It was a lie. Meaning he used this arrested Saudi Arabian girl as a ploy basically to make Jared Kushner look like a worse person, to make his sick burn look even sicker and burn more. And then in like this very strange DLC to the joke, he then continues to go on and just show you viral IG posts that he's had since then. It kind of feels like an 8-year-old kid coming back and giving like a report on what he did during the summer for class. That's kind of the vibe I got. And this leads us to the final bit he seemed to have lied about. After Hasan savagely roasted Saudi Arabia on an episode of his TV show, the entire country would want to get revenge on him for all the damage he caused to their image. Hasan would receive an envelope full of a white powder, which he just immediately assumed was anthrax, and also opened the envelope on top of his daughter's head so it got all over her, so he needed to take his daughter to the hospital. Now keep in mind the framing of the story is being told in this way where it's very dramatic and he has all these pauses and the whole mood is very somber, and he's supposed to be taking you on this like emotional journey, and he's making it sound like an entire country tried to have him, and by proxy his daughter, assassinated for being too edgy. Like all fake stories, his included, there's just a ton of plot holes. Probably one of my favorite plot holes from this Anthrax story was while his daughter was being checked out by the doctors, like him and his wife are in the emergency room, like waiting room together, and they're just having like this very serious heart-to-heart question about his comedy going too far and how it's now affecting their family. If he opened the letter, he would have also gotten anthrax on him, so why wasn't he being looked at by the doctors? Did he forget that he was the one that opened the letter? It's just, none of it makes sense. Anyways, the doctor ends up coming back and he's like, listen, good news, not anthrax, but damn cowboy, where'd you get all these enemies? You must be a strong and fearless human being. And that's actually the end of the bit. Just like the punchline to this bit, it was impossible to find any records of any kind of anthrax scare during this time period. So, I mean, this actually just didn't happen. Listen, I'm not against fictionally abusing your children as a plot device. I think that's fine. But you just need to make it funny. Oh, and I forgot to mention, there's this whole like subplot, sub-theme, overarching theme, whatever, throughout this entire stand-up special about Hasan being like obsessed with internet clout, which isn't told in like a self-deprecating way. It's told in this like, hey, look at this wacky quirk I have. Aren't I a human just like you?
Open your phone! Likes, comments, retweets! I am trending #1!
It's very odd. It's these lack of punchlines and the fake stories end up painting him as like the villainous character he was lightheartedly portraying himself to be. This is like, what is this like? This is like if a serial killer if you went on a date with a serial killer and then he started like ironically admitting to a bunch of crimes, and you're like, oh, that seems weird, and that's the last thing you kind of remember thinking before he murders you. Kind of like that, like he's playing with the truth and kind of burying it with his charisma. It's very strange. It's very sociopathic. As I mentioned, Hasan is interviewed for the article, but there's no like real kind of like long form quotes here that are even really worth regurgitating. The excuse, which I think I mentioned earlier, essentially that he uses throughout the entire thing is he's using emotional truths instead of, I guess, like factional truth, which doesn't make any sense. It is dumb. In the closer, he also tries to make this morality point that because he reads the comment section on Twitter and gets hurt by mean comments, Same goes for dictators, so make sure to tweet about how Russia is evil because it'll make them cry and you'll single-handedly have won the war and changed the world from your toilet. I don't really think Hasan realizes that the rest of the world isn't gay and doesn't go on r/Russia to see what people that speak a different language are secretly saying about them. And this goes into the overarching theme of the special, which is that Hasan has a powerful voice and that he is very powerful, and his voice is very Jester-like, but it's also king-like, which that's why he named the special Jester King or whatever. Because comedians are the real truth sayer, said no one funny ever. I'm gonna try and speedrun his closing bit because there's nothing provably false in here, but I'm assuming it is all lies because it does seem insane. His closing bit is essentially he meets a guy, or pretends to meet a guy, that is like a hedge fund type dude. And essentially what he does is that he buys businesses, guts them, and then sells off the assets, takes the profits, and then reinvests them into other assets like homes or other businesses, etc. And obviously this guy is evil because, you know, businesses are supposed to last forever. So anyways, he ends up buying a home that's down the street from Jeffrey Epstein, which obviously also makes this guy a minor attracted person because his house is on the same street as someone that's not alive anymore. I can't confirm if he was lying about this or not, but I'm just gonna assume that he is. He then lies about setting up billboards calling this guy out for being attracted to minors. The guy sues him, and then in the final bit, he essentially reads his lawyer's rebuttal letter to Clapter, and that closes the show. There's no punchline at the end. He just literally reads a legal document. I can't do this anymore.